In the heart of Washington, D.C., where the rich and powerful dine in luxury while others struggle to survive, a young woman named Isabelle Harper serves tables at an upscale restaurant. Kind-hearted yet struggling, she works long hours to support her younger sister, Lily, who dreams of going to college. Isabelle barely makes ends meet, but she never lets a homeless person go hungry, often sneaking leftover meals out the back door. One night, someone notices. A man sits in a corner booth watching. Not in a way that feels uncomfortable, but as if he's studying her. Nathaniel Cross, a billionaire with more influence than she could ever imagine, sees something in Isabelle that intrigues him. Unlike others who pass by those in need without a second glance, Isabelle stops. She kneels beside an elderly man, offering him a warm meal with a smile. She speaks to him like an equal, not with pity, but with kindness. Nathaniel isn't used to seeing people like her. Genuine, selfless, untouched by greed. He knows money can change lives, but can it change hers without breaking her spirit? What Nathaniel doesn't know is that Isabelle carries burdens far greater than financial struggles. And when their worlds collide, he'll have to decide, is he helping her, or is he about to destroy everything she's fought for? The air in Washington, D.C. carried the sharp bite of early spring as Isabelle darted between tables at the Gilded Fork, a sleek, upscale restaurant nestled in the heart of the city's bustling downtown. Crystal chandeliers gleamed overhead, casting golden light across white tablecloths and the polished shoes of the elite clientele. Senators, lobbyists, and CEOs who barely glanced up from their phones. Isabelle's apron was stained with a splash of red wine from a spilled glass earlier, and her dark hair clung to her sweat-damp forehead as she balanced a tray of steaming plates. "Here's your filet mignon, sir," she said, her voice soft but steady, placing the dish in front of a man in a crisp suit. He grunted without looking up, already slicing into the meat before she could turn away. "Faster, Isabelle," barked Mr. Lancaster, her boss, from across the room. His wiry frame loomed near the bar, his eyes narrowed as he scribbled something on a clipboard. "These people don't wait." Isabelle nodded, biting back the urge to snap. She needed this job. Every penny of her paycheck went to keeping a roof over her head, and her younger sister Mia fed and in school. At 16, Mia was all Isabelle had left after their parents passed, and she'd promised to be the rock her sister could lean on. No matter how rude the customers got or how much Mr. Lancaster hovered, she couldn't afford to crack. The night wore on, the clatter of dishes and hum of conversation filling the space. A woman in a fur coat snapped her fingers, her voice cutting through the din. "Excuse me, this soup is cold. Do your job right for once." Isabelle forced a smile, her hands trembling as she took the bowl. "I'll get you a fresh one, ma'am." She hurried to the kitchen, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her. But it wasn't the rudeness that gnawed at her, it was the waste. She glanced at the half-eaten plates piling up near the dish station. Perfectly good food destined for the trash while people starved just blocks away. When the clock hit midnight and the last customers trickled out, Isabelle saw her chance. She moved quickly, her heart thudding as she scooped leftover roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and rolls into a stack of takeout boxes she'd stashed under the counter. The kitchen staff had clocked out, leaving her alone with the hum of the fridge and the distant rumble of DC's nightlife beyond the walls. She slipped out the back door into the alley, the cold air hitting her like a slap. A figure shuffled forward from the shadows. Greg, a homeless man she'd met months ago when he'd been digging through the dumpster. His coat was threadbare, his gray beard tangled, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Isabelle," he rasped, his voice rough but warm. "You didn't have to." She handed him the boxes, her breath fogging in the chill. "You shouldn't go hungry, Greg. Not when there's enough here." He took the food with shaky hands, murmuring a quiet, "God bless you," as she smiled and turned back toward the door. But then a voice cut through the night, sharp and low. "What do you think you're doing?" Isabelle froze, her stomach dropping. It was Tony, one of the waiters, leaning against the wall with a cigarette dangling from his lips. His dark eyes flicked between her and Greg, who shuffled back into the shadows with the food clutched tight. "Tony, please," Isabelle whispered, stepping closer. "Don't tell Mr. Lancaster. I can't let it all go to waste." He exhaled a plume of smoke, his expression unreadable. "You're gonna get fired if he catches you. You know that, right? He's already on your case." He flicked the cigarette to the ground, crushing it under his heel. "Your heart's too big for this place, Isabelle. Watch yourself." He walked off, leaving her standing there, pulse racing. She knew he was right. Mr. Lancaster ran the Gilded Fork like a machine, every move calculated for profit, but she couldn't stop. Not when people like Greg were counting on her. The next day, the tension followed her like a shadow. She was mid-shift pouring coffee for a table of loud lobbyists when Mr. Lancaster called her into his office. The room was a stark contrast to the dining area, cramped, with a chipped wooden desk and a single flickering bulb overhead. Papers were strewn across the surface, and a half-empty coffee mug sat precariously close to the edge. He didn't look up from his ledger as she stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. "Isabelle," he said, his voice clipped. "I heard something interesting from Tony this morning." Her heart sank, thudding against her ribs. He set the pen down and met her gaze, his eyes cold. "You've been taking food out of my kitchen." "Food I paid for. Handing it off like this is some kind of soup kitchen." She swallowed hard, her mouth dry. "Mr. Lancaster, I just thought—" "You don't get paid to think," he snapped, rising from his chair. "This is a business, not a charity. Those leftovers? They're my property. You pull this again, and you're out. No second chances." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir," she managed, her throat tight. She wanted to argue, to tell him about Greg's hollow cheeks and the kids she'd seen shivering under bridges. But the words wouldn't come. She needed this job. Mia needed her to keep it. But as she left the office, her mind churned. How could she stop helping when her heart wouldn't let her? She didn't see the man in the corner booth watching her, his tailored suit blending into the crowd, his sharp eyes tracking her every move. That night back in the alley, she hesitated with the takeout boxes in her hands. Greg waited, his hopeful gaze piercing her. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting Tony or Mr. Lancaster to appear. Then, from the street beyond, a sleek black car rolled to a stop, its tinted windows reflecting the dim glow of a nearby lamp. Someone was watching. But who? And why? What would you do if you were Isabelle? Risk your job to help someone in need, or play it safe to protect the ones depending on you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The Gilded Fork buzzed with its usual Friday night energy, the clink of glasses and murmur of power players filling the air of the Washington, D.C. restaurant. Isabelle moved like a quiet storm through the chaos, her tray steady despite the ache in her arms. She delivered a plate of seared salmon to a table of lawyers arguing over some bill on Capitol Hill, their voices loud enough to drown out the soft jazz drifting from the speakers. "Enjoy your meal," she said, her tone warm but clipped. She couldn't linger. Mr. Lancaster's warning from yesterday still echoed in her head, a tight knot of dread in her chest. She couldn't lose this job, not with Mia counting on her, but the thought of stopping her late-night food runs gnawed at her just as fiercely. In a secluded booth near the back, tucked behind a partition of frosted glass, Nathaniel Cross sat alone. The billionaire real estate investor was a rare sight here. Most of DC's elite flaunted their wealth with loud laughter and entourages, but Nathaniel preferred the shadows. His tailored charcoal suit blended into the dim lighting, and his sharp green eyes scanned the room over the rim of a whiskey glass. At 42, he'd built an empire buying up half the city's skyline, turning crumbling lots into gleaming towers. But tonight his focus wasn't on deals or dollars, it was on Isabelle. He'd been here twice this week already, always in the same booth, always watching. It started by chance. He'd seen her slip out the back door 2 nights ago, takeout boxes in hand, her hurried steps betraying a secret she thought no one noticed. Then he'd caught the way she smiled at Greg, the homeless man in the alley. A smile that held no judgment, only kindness. Now, as she navigated the dining room, he saw it again. The way she paused to refill an elderly woman's water glass with a gentle word. The way she brushed off a rude comment from a drunk lobbyist with quiet grace. She was a flicker of light in a place that thrived on cold ambition. Beside him, his assistant, Jacob, scribbled something in a leather-bound notebook. Jacob was younger, maybe 30, with a wiry build and a habit of pushing his glasses up his nose when he was thinking. He'd been with Nathaniel for 5 years, long enough to read the man's silences. "She's different," Jacob said, his voice low, barely audible over the chatter. He nodded toward Isabelle as she cleared a table nearby, stacking plates with quick, practiced hands. Nathaniel took a slow sip of his whiskey, the ice clinking softly. "People like her don't last long in places like this," he replied, his tone dry but edged with something else. Curiosity, maybe. "This city chews up kindness and spits it out." He leaned back, his gaze never leaving her. Jacob glanced at him, pen hovering over the page. "You've been watching her all week," Jacob said, a faint question in his words. "Why?" Nathaniel didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure himself. He'd seen plenty of servers come and go, most hardened by the grind or broken by it. But Isabelle, she carried a fire he couldn't place, a stubborn warmth that defied the restaurant's polished cruelty. "She's hiding something," he said finally. "And I want to know what." The night stretched on, and Nathaniel kept his vigil. He saw Tony, the waiter, shoot Isabelle a warning look as she passed the kitchen door, a look that made her flinch but didn't stop her. He saw Mr. Lancaster hovering near the bar, his clipboard clutched like a weapon, his eyes darting to Isabelle every few minutes. Nathaniel's mind ticked like a clock, piecing together the tension in the room. She was on thin ice, and she knew it. Later, in the quiet of his downtown office, Nathaniel stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below him in a sea of lights. Jacob sat at a sleek desk, typing on a laptop, the glow illuminating his focused frown. "I dug into her file," Jacob said, not looking up. "Isabelle Harper, 24. Lives in a rundown apartment in Anacostia with her sister Mia, 16. Parents died in a car accident 3 years ago. No college, works doubles here to make ends meet." Nathaniel turned, hands clasped behind his back. "And the food?" Jacob hesitated. "No one's reported it officially, but Tony's been talking. She's been sneaking leftovers out for months, gives them to the homeless. Lancaster's furious, but he hasn't fired her yet. Probably because she's too good at her job." Nathaniel nodded, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. A bleeding heart in a shark tank. Interesting. He crossed to the desk, picking up a photo Jacob had pulled from some database. Isabelle and Mia, arms around each other, laughing in a park. Mia's eyes were bright, her smile wide. Isabelle's held a quiet strength, a weight she didn't let her sister see. "She's not just feeding strangers," Nathaniel murmured. "She's carrying more than she shows." Back at the restaurant, Isabelle's shift was winding down. She wiped down a table, her hands moving on autopilot when Tony cornered her near the kitchen. "You're pushing your luck," he hissed, his voice low. "Lancaster's watching you like a hawk. One more slip and you're done." "I can't stop," she shot back, her whisper fierce. "You don't get it, Tony. Those people out there, they need me." He shook his head, frustration flashing in his eyes. "And Mia? What's she gonna do when you're out of a job?" He walked off, leaving her standing there, her resolve wavering. She didn't notice the black car idling across the street again, its engine a soft purr in the night. Nathaniel was inside, his window cracked just enough to hear her voice carry on the wind. The next evening, Nathaniel returned to the Gilded Fork, this time with a plan. He waited until Isabelle was busy with the table, then signaled Jacob. "Find out more about the sister," he said quietly. "School records? Anything. I want the full picture." Jacob nodded and slipped out, leaving Nathaniel alone with his thoughts and his growing fascination. As Isabelle cleared his booth later, she met his gaze for the first time. "Everything okay, sir?" she asked, her voice polite but guarded. He studied her, the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly from the long shift. "Perfect," he said, his tone smooth. "You're good at this. Better than most." She blinked, caught off guard, then offered a small smile before hurrying away. He watched her go, the gears in his mind turning faster. She had no idea who he was or what he could do. That night, Jacob called him from the office. "Mia's a straight-A student," he reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "But she's been missing classes. Teachers say she's distracted, tired. Sounds like Isabelle's stretched thin, keeping them afloat." Nathaniel stared out at the city, a decision forming. "She's fighting a losing battle," he said, "but she doesn't know it yet." He hung up, the car's engine humming as he drove past the alley where Isabelle handed Greg another box of food. Someone else was there too, a shadow in a hoodie watching her just as closely. Friend or threat? Nathaniel's grip tightened on the wheel. Time would tell. The key stuck in the lock as Isabelle jiggled it. her breath fogging in the chilly March air outside her apartment in Anacostia, a gritty corner of Washington, D.C., far from the polished gleam of the gilded fork. The building was a sagging relic, peeling paint, cracked steps, and a flickering bulb that buzzed overhead. She finally got the door open, stepping into the cramped space she called home. The living room was barely bigger than a closet, with a threadbare couch shoved against one wall and a tiny kitchenette in the corner. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting a weak glow over the chipped linoleum floor. Mia's schoolbooks were scattered on a wobbly table, a reminder of the life Isabelle was fighting to give her younger sister. "Lil, I'm home," Isabelle called, her voice soft but strained. She dropped her bag by the door, the weight of her double shift still pressing on her shoulders. No answer came, just a faint cough from the bedroom, a narrow space separated by a curtain. Isabelle's heart sank as she pushed it aside. Mia, Lily as Isabelle called her, was curled up on a thin mattress, her dark hair tangled across the pillow. At 16, she was small for her age, her face pale and drawn. A damp cloth rested on her forehead, and a half-empty glass of water sat on the crate they used as a nightstand. "Hey, you okay?" Isabelle knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. The girl's eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever. "It's just a cold," Lily rasped, forcing a weak smile. "Don't worry, Izzy." But the cough that followed was deep and rattling, cutting through Isabelle like a knife. She'd noticed it starting a week ago, but now it was worse. Much worse. Lily needed medicine, maybe a doctor, and the $12 in Isabelle's pocket wouldn't even cover a bus ride to the clinic. "I'll get you something," Isabelle said, taking Lily's clammy hand in hers. Her voice trembled, but she forced it steady. "I promise I'll fix this, okay? You just rest." Lily nodded, her eyes drifting shut again, trust radiating from her, even as her breathing hitched. Isabelle stayed there, holding her hand, the weight of that promise crushing her. She'd lost her parents 3 years ago, car crash, sudden and brutal, and she'd sworn Lily would never feel that kind of loss again. But how could she keep that vow when every dime went to rent and ramen? The next day at the Gilded Fork, Isabelle's exhaustion was a living thing, dragging at her steps as she carried a tray of drinks to a table of loud consultants. Her mind was still in that apartment, replaying Lily's cough, calculating how many shifts she'd need to afford a prescription. She didn't see the glass of water tip until it was too late. Ice and liquid splashed across a woman's silk blouse. "Are you kidding me?" the woman shrieked, leaping up. "Do you have any idea how much this costs?" "I'm so sorry," Isabelle stammered, grabbing napkins and dabbing at the mess. Her hands shook, her apology drowned out by the woman's tirade. Heads turned, and Mr. Lancaster materialized like a storm cloud, his clipboard clutched tight. "Harper!" he barked, jerking his head toward the back. "Office, now!" Isabelle followed, her stomach twisting as the dining room chatter faded behind her. The office was as bleak as ever, desk piled with papers, air thick with the scent of stale coffee. Mr. Lancaster didn't sit, just loomed over her, his voice low and sharp. "You're too slow," he said, jabbing a finger at her. "Spilling drinks, daydreaming. Customers are complaining. And Tony says you're still sneaking food out. I warned you, Isabelle. This is a business." "I'm trying," she said, her throat tight. "I need this job, Mr. Lancaster. Please." "Trying isn't enough," he cut in. "One more mistake. One, and you're gone. Final warning." He turned back to his ledger, dismissing her without another word. Isabelle stood there, frozen, the threat ringing in her ears. She couldn't lose this job. Not now, not with Lily sick. But Greg's face flashed in her mind, his quiet gratitude, the way he'd clutched that food like a lifeline. How could she stop helping when it was the only thing keeping her sane? That night, she sat by Lily's bedside, counting the coins from her tips. $18.34. A bottle of cough syrup at the corner store was $9, but it wouldn't touch the fever. She needed more. Antibiotics, a doctor's visit, and the numbers didn't add up. I'll figure it out, she whispered, squeezing Lily's hand as her sister slept. But her voice cracked, doubt creeping in. She didn't hear the faint knock at the door, didn't see the shadow slip an envelope under it. An envelope with no name, just a crisp $100 bill inside. The next shift was a blur. Isabelle pushed through, her focus razor-sharp despite the fatigue clawing at her. She couldn't afford another slip, but as she cleared a table, Tony pulled her aside, his voice a harsh whisper. Lancaster's got it out for you. He's been asking the staff about the food. You're on borrowed time, Isabelle. She nodded, her chest tight. Thanks for the heads up. But her mind was racing. Borrowed time meant nothing when Lily was burning up at home. She didn't notice Nathaniel Cross in his booth, his green eyes tracking her every move, or Jacob scribbling notes beside him. She didn't see the black car idling outside again, its driver watching as she slipped out the back with another box for Greg. In the alley, Greg took the food with a grateful nod. You're an angel, Isabelle, he said, his voice rough. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. As he shuffled away, she lingered, the cold biting at her fingers. Then she heard it. A rustle, a step. She spun, heart pounding, but the alley was empty. Or was it? A shadow flickered near the dumpster, gone before she could be sure. Someone was out there, watching. But who? Back inside, Mr. Lancaster caught her as she clocked out. You're pushing it, he said, his voice a low growl. I know you were out there again. One more time, and you're finished. He walked off, leaving her standing by the time clock, her world teetering on the edge. She didn't know about the envelope waiting at home, or the man in the booth planning to turn her life upside down. All right, everyone, things are getting intense. Isabelle's barely holding on. Lily's sick, her job's hanging by a thread, and someone's watching her. What would you do if you were her? Keep fighting for others or save yourself first? And that envelope. Who do you think left it? Drop your guesses in the comments. The sun had barely risen over Washington, D.C., its pale light filtering through the towering glass walls of Nathaniel Cross's downtown office. The room was a fortress of modern wealth. Polished oak desk, leather chairs, and a view of the city's skyline that stretched from the Capitol to the Potomac. Nathaniel stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his sharp green eyes fixed on the streets below where the early bustle was just beginning. At 42, he'd built this empire from nothing, but today his mind wasn't on real estate. It was on Isabelle Harper, the waitress who'd captured his attention with her stubborn kindness. Jacob, his assistant, sat at the desk, laptop open, fingers flying across the keys. The glow of the screen lit his focused face as he pushed his glasses up his nose. I've got the latest on Isabelle, he said, his voice brisk. Lily's fever spiked last night. She's at the free clinic now. Doctor says it's pneumonia. Antibiotics, rest, maybe a hospital stay if it gets worse. Bill's already at $800, and that's just the start. Nathaniel turned, his expression unreadable. And Isabelle? Working doubles at the Gilded Fork, barely sleeping. Rent's due in a week, and she's got nothing left after tips. Jacob hesitated, glancing up. She's drowning, Nate. Doesn't ask for help, though. Keeps giving food away like it's her mission. Nathaniel crossed to the desk, picking up a photo Jacob had printed. Isabelle and Lily outside their crumbling apartment. Lily's arm looped through her sister's, both of them smiling despite the shadows under their eyes. She's not just a bleeding heart, Nathaniel said, his voice low. She's a fighter, but she's losing. He set the photo down, a decision hardening in his gaze. Get me the clinic's contact. I want that bill gone. Every cent. No trace back to me. Jacob's eyebrows shot up. You're serious? Do it! Nathaniel cut in, his tone final. She doesn't need to know. Not yet. Jacob nodded, already dialing, while Nathaniel turned back to the window. He didn't know why he cared, not fully. Maybe it was the way Isabelle reminded him of his own sister, lost years ago to a system that didn't give second chances. Or maybe it was something else, something he couldn't name. At the clinic across town, Isabelle sat in a plastic chair beside Lily's cot. the beep of a monitor steady in the background. Lily's breathing was shallow but easier now, the antibiotics kicking in. A nurse had handed Isabelle the bill an hour ago, $800 with more to come. And she'd stared at it, numb, her mind scrambling for a plan. She'd sell her old phone, pick up extra shifts, anything. But then the nurse returned, her expression puzzled. "Miss Harper, there's been a mix-up," she said, holding a new sheet. "Your balance is zero. Someone paid it. Anonymous donor." Isabelle blinked, her heart stuttering. "What? That's impossible. I didn't—" "It's done," the nurse said, shrugging. "You're clear." She walked off, leaving Isabelle clutching the paper, her mind reeling. Who? How? She glanced at Lily, still asleep, and whispered, "I don't know who you are, but thank you." Relief flooded her, but so did unease. Someone out there knew her, saw her struggles. The thought lingered, heavy and unanswered. Back at the Gilded Fork that evening, Isabelle threw herself into her shift, her focus razor sharp. Lily was stable, the bill was gone. She could breathe just for a moment. She delivered plates, refilled glasses, even managed a genuine smile for a kind older couple. But the weight of Mr. Lancaster's final warning hung over her like a storm cloud. She couldn't slip, not now. As the night wound down, she saw her chance. Leftover chicken and rolls piling up by the kitchen. Greg would be waiting in the alley, his hopeful eyes a beacon she couldn't ignore. She moved fast, stuffing the food into takeout boxes, her pulse racing as she glanced around. The kitchen was empty, the staff clocked out. She slipped out the back door, the cold air hitting her like a wave. Greg was there, his coat pulled tight against the wind. "Isabelle," he said, his voice rough with gratitude as she handed him the boxes. "You're too good to me." "Take care, Greg," she said, her smile tight. She turned to go, then froze. Mr. Lancaster stood in the doorway, his wiry frame silhouetted against the kitchen light, his eyes blazing. "Harper!" he roared, stepping into the alley. "I told you, one more time and you're done. What is this?" He snatched a box from Greg's hands, tossing it to the ground. The lid popped open, chicken spilling across the pavement. "Mr. Lancaster, please," Isabelle said, stepping forward, her voice shaking. "It's just leftovers. It was going in the trash." "It's my food," he snapped, his face red. "My business. You think you can play saint on my dime?" He pointed at her, his finger trembling with rage. "You're fired. Get your things and get out. Now." Isabelle's world tilted, her breath catching in her throat. "No, please, I need this job. My sister—" "Should have thought of that before," he cut in, turning back inside. "You're done." The door slammed shut, leaving her standing there, the alley silent except for Greg's quiet murmur of apology as he gathered the spilled food. She didn't move, shock rooting her to the spot. Fired. No income, no way to pay rent, no safety net for Lily. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back, fists clenched. She wouldn't break. Not here. Across the street, Nathaniel watched from his car, the engine idling softly. Jacob sat beside him, phone in hand. "She's out," Jacob said, his voice tense. "Lancaster just canned her, right in the alley." Nathaniel's jaw tightened, his gaze locked on Isabelle's figure, small but unbowed in the dim light. "He's a fool," he muttered, "throwing away someone like her." He paused, then added, "Call the clinic again. Double the payment, cover whatever's coming, and find me a way to get her back on her feet. She's not done yet." Jacob nodded, already tapping away, while Nathaniel leaned back, his mind racing. Isabelle didn't know it, but her life was about to change. Because he'd seen her fire, her heart, and he wasn't letting it burn out. But as he drove off, another shadow lingered in the alley, watching her still. Who was it? And what did they want? Isabella's apron was stuffed in her bag. Unaware of the danger looming around her, her final paycheck, a measly $47, crumpled in her pocket. The firing still echoed in her ears, Mr. Lancaster's furious words a hammer against her resolve. Fired. No job, no safety net, just Lily's fragile breathing and a rent bill looming like a guillotine. She stopped at a corner store, spending half her cash on cough syrup and a loaf of bread, her mind racing for a plan. She didn't notice the black car trailing a block behind, its tinted windows hiding Nathaniel Cross's steady gaze. Back at the apartment, Isabelle pushed the door open, the familiar creak a hollow welcome. Lily was up, sitting on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders, her face still pale but brighter than yesterday. "You're early," Lily said, her voice hoarse but curious. "Everything okay?" Isabelle forced a smile, setting the bag down. "Yeah, just a short shift. How are you feeling?" She crossed to her sister, brushing a hand over her forehead. "Cooler now, thank God." The clinic's mysterious payment still gnawed at her, a puzzle with no edges, but she couldn't dwell on it. Not when survival was the priority. "Better," Lily said, managing a grin. "You worry too much, Izzy." She coughed, softer this time, and Isabelle's heart clenched. She sat beside her, pulling her close, the weight of the day pressing down. "I'll always worry," she murmured. "You're all I've got." Across town, Nathaniel paced his office, the city lights a glittering backdrop to his restless thoughts. Jacob sat at the desk, scrolling through a tablet. "Clinics covered through next month," he reported. "And I found something, a job opening at a community center in Anacostia. Kitchen work, feeding the homeless. Pays less than the restaurant, but she'd fit right in." Nathaniel stopped, his eyes narrowing. "She'd take it," he said. "But she needs more than scraps. She's got potential, more than she knows." He tapped a finger against the window, then turned. "Set up a meeting. I want to see her, face to face. No more shadows." Jacob hesitated. "You sure?" "She doesn't even know you exist." "She will," Nathaniel replied, his voice firm. "Tomorrow, make it happen." Jacob nodded, already drafting an email while Nathaniel's mind churned. He'd watched her long enough, seen her fight, her heart, her breaking point. It was time to step in. The next morning, Isabelle woke to a knock at the door. She stumbled over, bleary-eyed, expecting a landlord's demand for rent. Instead, a courier handed her an envelope. Plain, no sender, just her name in crisp black ink. Inside was a note. "Meet me at Lincoln Park, 11 a.m. A chance to change things. Come alone." Her pulse quickened. Who? The clinic donor? A trap? She glanced at Lily, still asleep, and made a choice. She had nothing left to lose. At Lincoln Park, the air was crisp, cherry blossoms just starting to bud along the paths. Isabelle stood by the statue of Abraham Lincoln, hands shoved in her coat pockets, scanning the crowd. Then she saw him, Nathaniel, striding toward her in a tailored coat, his presence calm but commanding. "Isabelle Harper?" he asked, his voice smooth, green eyes locking onto hers. She stiffened, wary. "Who are you?" "Nathaniel Cross," he said, offering a hand she didn't take. "I've been watching you, at the Gilded Fork, in the alley. I saw what you did for that man, Greg. And for your sister." Her stomach dropped, suspicion flaring. "You're the one from the car. What do you want?" "To help," he said simply. "You're out of a job, Lily's sick, and you're still fighting. I paid her medical bill. Don't ask how, just know it's done. And I've got something for you." He pulled a card from his pocket, a job offer, handwritten. "Director of a new outreach program. My company's funding it. Food, shelter, support for people like Greg. You'd run it. Good pay, enough to keep you and Lily afloat." Isabelle stared at the card, her hands trembling. "Why me?" "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You're rare. Someone who gives when they've got nothing left. I lost someone like that once. I'm not letting it happen again." His voice softened, a crack in his polished armor. "Take it, Isabelle. You deserve it." She swallowed, tears prickling her eyes. I need to think." She turned away, clutching the card, her mind a storm of hope and doubt. Nathaniel watched her go, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But as she disappeared into the crowd, a figure stepped from behind a tree, a man in a hoodie, the same shadow from the alley. He approached Nathaniel, pulling the hood back to reveal Greg's weathered face. "She's the real deal," Greg said, his voice low. "Told me to keep an eye on her, make sure she didn't break. You did good, Cross." Nathaniel nodded, a twist of surprise flickering through him. "You're sharper than you let on, old man." Greg chuckled, slipping away, leaving Nathaniel with a new respect, and a certainty he'd chosen right. That night, Isabelle sat with Lily, the card on the table between them. "It's a chance," she said, her voice steady. "A real one. I'm taking it. For us." Lily hugged her, tears in both their eyes, and for the first time in years, Isabelle felt the weight lift just a little. Outside, the city hummed, and Nathaniel's car rolled past, a silent promise kept. The morning sun cut through the haze over Washington, D.C. as Isabelle stepped off the bus in front of Cross Enterprises headquarters, a sleek tower of glass and steel that loomed over downtown. Her new coat, bought with the last of her savings, felt stiff against her shoulders, and the job offer card trembled slightly in her hand. Director of Outreach Operations, $80,000 a year, benefits, a chance to turn her late-night food runs into something bigger. She'd said yes for Lily, for Greg, for herself. But as she crossed the marble lobby, heels clicking against the floor, doubt gnawed at her. She was a waitress yesterday. Today, she was stepping into Nathaniel Cross's world. Nathaniel met her in his office, the city sprawling behind him through the towering windows. "Welcome aboard," he said, his voice smooth, green eyes steady. "You'll oversee a new charity project, food distribution, shelters, job training. It's yours to shape. Start with an event next week, a fundraiser to launch it. Show them what you've got." Isabelle nodded, her throat tight. "I won't let you down." She meant it, every word, but the weight of his trust pressed on her chest. He handed her a stack of files, a key card, and a smile that felt like a lifeline. "You'll do more than that," he said. "You'll prove me right." Her first day was a whirlwind. Her office was small but hers. Desk, computer, a window overlooking the street. She dove into plans for the fundraiser, a dinner at a local community center, donors mingling with people like Greg, real stories to spark real change. But the air shifted when she met the executives. In a boardroom down the hall, they waited. 5 suits with clipped voices and cold stares. Margaret Voss, head of PR, leaned forward, her red nails tapping the table. "A waitress," she said, her tone sharp. "Running a division. Nathaniel, this is a stretch, even for you." "She's earned it," Nathaniel replied, his calm unshaken. "Results matter, not resumes." "Perception matters," countered Richard Hale, a gray-haired VP with a perpetual frown. "Cross Enterprises isn't a charity case. She's out of her depth." The others nodded, their skepticism a wall Isabelle could feel through the glass door. She stood outside, files clutched to her chest, hearing every word. Her face burned, but she straightened her spine. She'd prove them wrong. The week raced by, Isabelle pouring herself into the fundraiser. She booked the venue, secured donations, tables of roasted chicken, trays of rolls, a nod to the food she'd once slipped to Greg. Lily helped, her health rebounding, stuffing envelopes with a grin. "You're a boss now, Izzy," she teased, and Isabelle laughed, the sound rare and bright. But tension simmered. Margaret lingered at her door, watching. Richard rerouted her calls, claiming oversight. Small jabs, sharp edges, she felt them all. The night of the event arrived, the community center buzzing with donors in suits and locals in borrowed jackets. Isabelle moved through the crowd, her voice steady as she welcomed them. "This isn't just about food," she said, standing by Greg, who'd cleaned up for the night. "It's about people, giving them a hand up, not a handout." Applause rippled, Nathaniel nodding from the back. For a moment, she believed she'd won. Then it fell apart. The lights flickered, then died, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps rose, followed by a crash. Tables overturned, food spilling across the floor. Isabelle rushed forward, heart pounding, as power returned to reveal chaos. Trays smashed, donors muttering, Greg shielding a kid from the mess. "What happened?" she demanded, finding the center's manager. "Wiring cut," he said grim. "Someone did this." Her stomach dropped. Sabotage. She scanned the room, Margaret's smirk, Richard's crossed arms. They hated her here, and they'd struck. Nathaniel pulled her aside, his voice low. "This wasn't you. I'll handle it." But before he could, Jacob burst in, phone in hand. "Boss, you need to see this, now." He thrusted at Nathaniel, a news alert glowing. Cross Enterprises billionaire and secret affair with new hire. A grainy photo, Isabelle and Nathaniel at Lincoln Park, his hand outstretched, paired with lies about a mistress trading favors for her job. Isabelle's breath stopped. "That's not true," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know," Nathaniel said, his jaw tight. "It's a setup. Someone's playing dirty." He turned to Jacob. "Trace it. Find out who leaked this." Jacob nodded, already dialing, while Isabelle stood frozen, the room spinning. Donors stared, whispers spreading like fire. Margaret approached, her smile thin. "Rough night, Isabelle. Maybe this isn't your place." "It is," Isabelle snapped, fire flaring in her chest. "I'm not running." She faced the crowd, voice trembling but clear. "This event's for them." She gestured to Greg, the locals. "Not rumors. Help me fix it." A few stepped up. Greg, a donor, even Lily. Writing tables, salvaging what they could. Nathaniel watched, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Later, in his office, he confronted the executives. "Who did it?" he demanded, his calm cracking. Silence stretched, then Richard shifted. "It's business, Nathaniel. She's a liability." "She's an asset," he shot back. "And you're out if I prove it was you." He turned to Isabelle. "You're staying. We'll fight this." She nodded, resolve hardening. But as she left, a text buzzed her phone. Anonymous. "Quit, or it gets worse." Her hands shook. Who was behind this? And how far would they go? Who do you think sabotaged the event? Margaret, Richard, or someone else? And that scandal, how should she handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The dawn light crept through the blinds of Isabelle's tiny Anacostia apartment, casting stripes across the couch where she sat, the anonymous text glowing on her phone. "Quit, or it gets worse." Her hands hadn't stopped shaking since last night's fundraiser. The overturned tables, the spilled food, the whispered accusations of an affair with Nathaniel Cross. She'd salvaged what she could, but the damage lingered, a bruise on her newfound hope. Lily slept in the bedroom, her breathing steady now, a small mercy in the storm. Isabelle clutched the job offer card Nathaniel had given her, its edges worn from her grip. She'd fought too hard to let this break her. But who was behind it? At Cross Enterprises, Nathaniel stood in his office, the city waking beyond the glass. Jacob paced, phone pressed to his ear. "Tech traced the leak," he said, hanging up. The scandal story came from an encrypted email, routed through a dozen servers. But the photo? Someone at the park had a camera, and that text to Isabelle matches the pattern. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Someone close, inside the company. He turned to the desk where files on his executives lay scattered. Margaret Voss, Richard Hale, the others who'd sneered at Isabelle's rise. "They want her gone. Why?" "She's a threat," Jacob said, pushing his glasses up. "A waitress turned director? She's shaking their world." He tapped a file. "Margaret's been meeting with a tabloid contact. Richard's pushing a vote to cut the outreach program. They're circling." "Then we fight back," Nathaniel said, his voice steel. "Get Isabelle here. We're ending this today." By 9, Isabelle stood in the lobby of Cross Enterprises, her coat swapped for a borrowed blazer from Lily's school play stash. She felt the stares, assistants whispering, security eyeing her like an intruder. Nathaniel met her at the elevator, his calm a lifeline. "You're not quitting," he said, leading her up. "They don't get to win." The boardroom was a battlefield. Margaret sat at the head, her red nails gleaming like claws. Richard flanked her, his frown deeper than ever. The other executives filled the seats, their silence thick with judgment. Nathaniel strode in with Isabelle, his presence a wall between her and their disdain. "We've got a problem," he said, tossing the scandal article onto the table. "Someone here leaked this, sabotaged her event, threatened her. Who?" Margaret's laugh was sharp. "You're paranoid, Nathaniel. She's the problem, dragging us into the mud with her sob story." She flicked a glance at Isabelle. "No offense, dear, but you don't belong here." "I belong where I can help," Isabelle shot back, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "That event was for people like my sister, like Greg. You trashed it. Why?" Richard leaned forward, his tone icy. "It's business. This outreach nonsense costs us. You're a liability, Nathaniel's pet project gone wrong." "She's an asset," Nathaniel snapped, "and you're out of line." He nodded to Jacob, who slid a tablet across the table. Screenshots of Margaret's emails to a reporter. Richard's budget cuts flagged for review. "Proof," Nathaniel said. "You're done." The room erupted. Margaret shouting denials, Richard slamming a fist on the table. Isabelle stood quiet, her mind racing. Then the door burst open and Greg shuffled in, his coat still threadbare but his eyes sharp. "Tell him," he said to Isabelle, voice rough. "Tell him what they're missing." She blinked, caught off guard, then stepped forward. "You see numbers," she said, facing the executives. "I see people. Greg's alive because of a meal. Lily's breathing because of a chance. You tried to bury me, but I'm still here, and so are they." Her words hung, raw and real, and for a moment, the room stilled. Margaret smirked, unfazed. "Touching, but it's over." She pulled out her phone, revealing a new headline. "Cross exec fired over affair. Company in chaos." "Went live 10 minutes ago. You're finished, Nathaniel. And her." The twist hit like a punch. Margaret had doubled down, leaking more lies. Nathaniel's calm cracked, fury flashing in his eyes. "You think that saves you?" he said, voice low. "You're fired, both of you." He turned to security, already entering. "Get them out." As Margaret and Richard were escorted away, protesting, Isabelle's phone buzzed again. Another text. "You'll pay." Her blood ran cold. "It's not over," she whispered to Nathaniel. "Someone's still out there." He nodded grim. "We'll find them, but you're safe. And you're staying." He handed her a new contract, signed. "Outreach is yours. Full funding. No more games." That night, Isabelle sat with Lily and Greg at the community center, salvaged food on the table, laughter cutting through the tension. "We made it," she said, her smile real. But as she glanced out the window, a shadow moved. A figure in a hoodie watching. The same one? Her grip tightened on Lily's hand. Nathaniel's car rolled up outside, his promise echoing. "We'll find them." But who? And when? Isabelle stood in the community center's kitchen, scrubbing pans from the evening's meal service. Lily hummed nearby, stacking plates, her health steady now, a quiet victory in the chaos. Greg had left an hour ago, his belly full and a rare smile on his face, but Isabelle couldn't shake the unease prickling her skin. That shadow in the hoodie, the text, "You'll pay," still haunted her. She'd won the outreach role, seen Margaret and Richard ousted, but something lingered, a thread she couldn't grasp. Her phone sat silent on the counter, but she checked it every few minutes, waiting for the next blow. Across town, Nathaniel Cross leaned against his office desk, the glow of his laptop casting sharp lines across his face. Jacob sat opposite, files spread between them. Emails, bank records, surveillance stills. "We've got a lead," Jacob said, his voice tight. The text traced back to a burner phone bought cash in DuPont Circle, but the signal pinged near the Gilded Fork multiple times. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. Lancaster. The name dropped like a stone. He fired Isabelle, hated her guts for helping the homeless. He's got motive. And means, Jacob added, sliding a photo across. Mr. Lancaster, wiry and scowling, shaking hands with a man in a suit outside a bar. That's Victor Crane, ex-Cross Enterprises exec. Fired 2 years ago for skimming funds. They've been meeting, a lot. Nathaniel straightened, his mind racing. Crane's got the know-how, hacking, leaks. Lancaster's got the grudge, they're working together. He grabbed his coat. Get Isabelle here, we're digging deeper. Tonight. At the community center, Isabelle's phone buzzed. Not a text, but Nathaniel's name flashing. Meet me at the office, he said, his tone urgent. It's about the threats. Bring Lily if she's there. Keep her close. She hesitated, glancing at her sister, then nodded. We're coming. The drive was tense. Lily quiet in the passenger seat, sensing Isabelle's nerves. Cross Enterprises loomed ahead, its glass facade a beacon in the dark. Nathaniel met them in the lobby, Jacob at his side. Lancaster's behind it, he said, leading them up. Him and Victor Crane, an old colleague with a score to settle. They sabotaged your event, leaked the scandal. We've got proof. In the office, Jacob pulled up a screen. Grainy footage of Lancaster slipping a burner phone into his pocket. Outside the Gilded Fork, Crane beside him, handing over a stack of cash. They've been at it since you started, Jacob said. Lancaster wanted you crushed. Punishment for the food runs. Crane wanted me humiliated. Revenge for his firing. Isabelle's stomach twisted. Lancaster? He's hated me that long? She sank into a chair, Lily's hand on her shoulder. Why go this far? Money, Nathaniel said, his voice hard. And pride. We're pulling their financials. Something's off. He nodded to Jacob, who typed furiously, bank statements flashing up. Cross Enterprises accounts, then Lancaster's restaurant books. Look, discrepancies. The Gilded Fork's been bleeding cash, funneled somewhere. Crane's fingerprints are all over it. The night stretched, the four of them piecing it together. Lily fetched coffee, her quiet strength a balm as Isabelle traced transactions. Thousands siphoned from the restaurant, masked as supplies, wired to offshore accounts. Fraud, she whispered. He's been stealing for years. And Crane helped, Nathaniel added. Laundered it through shell companies. They used you as a distraction, keep us busy while they covered tracks. He stood, resolve hardening. We're taking this to the feds, now. By morning, the office buzzed with new energy. Nathaniel called a contact at the FBI, handing over files, emails, footage, bank records. Isabelle watched, her heart pounding as agents arrived, their questions sharp and fast. Lancaster's at the restaurant, one said, checking his phone. Crane's MIA, bolted last night. Then we move, Nathaniel said. Isabelle, you're with me. Let's end this. She nodded, adrenaline surging. Lily stayed with Jacob, safe behind the glass walls as Isabelle and Nathaniel drove to the Gilded Fork, an agent tailing them. The restaurant was quiet, mid-morning lull, but Lancaster was there, behind the bar, clipboard in hand, oblivious. Nathaniel strode in, Isabelle at his side, the agent lingering by the door. Lancaster, Nathaniel called, voice cutting through the hum. Game's up. Lancaster froze, his eyes darting to Isabelle. You, he spat, his wiry frame tensing. Still causing trouble? You caused it, she said, stepping forward. The threats, the sabotage, you and Crane. We know everything. She held up a printout, his bank transfers circled in red. Stealing from your own place? Real smart. His face paled, then twisted. You've got nothing, he snarled, but his hands shook. Nathaniel signaled the agent, who moved in, badge flashing. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. the agent said, cuffs out. You're under arrest. Lancaster lunged for the back door, but the agent was faster, pinning him against the bar. You can't, he yelled, thrashing. Crane's the brains, His words cut off as he was dragged out, the restaurant staff gaping. Isabelle exhaled, her knees weak, but Nathaniel steadied her. It's over, he said. You did this. Back at the office, news broke. Gilded Fork owner arrested in fraud sting. Jacob dug deeper, finding Crane's trail. A flight booked to Miami, intercepted at Dulles. Both down, he said, grinning. Clean sweep. But the twist wasn't done. An agent approached Nathaniel holding a ledger from Lancaster's safe. He wasn't just skimming the restaurant, she said. He funneled cash to block your outreach permits, kept the homeless off his streets. Personal vendetta. Isabelle's breath caught. Every box she'd given Greg, every fight she'd won, Lancaster had hated her for it. That night, the community center glowed with life. Isabelle stood with Lily, Greg, and a crowd of locals, a makeshift celebration, food on tables, music playing. Nathaniel joined them, his suit swapped for a sweater, a rare ease in his smile. You built this, he told her, nodding to the room. They couldn't stop you. She smiled, tears brimming. We built it. She hugged Lily, then Greg, the weight of years lifting. Outside the city hummed, the shadow gone. Lancaster's arrest a final note. But as Nathaniel drove off, a call buzzed his phone. Crane's voice, low and furious. This isn't the end. The late afternoon sun dipped low over Washington, D.C., painting the city in hues of gold as Isabelle stood outside the community center, a rare moment of stillness settling over her. The past week had been a blur. Lancaster's arrest, Crane's capture, the outreach program thriving under her steady hand. Lily was back at school, her cough a memory, and Greg had a cot at a shelter she'd funded. Yet the weight of years, struggle, loss, relentless fight, still clung to her, a shadow she couldn't shake. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathaniel. Meet me downtown, got something to show you. She hesitated, then grabbed her coat, curiosity tugging her forward. Downtown, Nathaniel waited outside a small, shuttered storefront on a quiet street near the Capitol. His sweater was casual, his green eyes warm as she approached. You're late, he teased, a faint smile breaking his usual calm. Had to make sure Lily ate, she said, hands in her pockets. What's this? He gestured to the building, cracked windows, faded sign, but a sturdy frame beneath the wear. It's yours, he said, holding out a key. If you want it, a cafe, small, manageable. Run it your way. Cross Enterprises covers the startup. Rent, supplies, staff, no strings. Isabelle's breath caught, her fingers hovering over the key. Why? She asked, voice soft. You've already done so much. Nathaniel stepped closer, his tone earnest. You deserve a life where you don't have to struggle anymore. I've watched you carry everyone. Lily, Greg, this city. Let someone carry you for once. His words hit deep, cracking the wall she'd built around her heart. She'd fought alone since her parents died, since the world turned hard. Help felt like surrender, but his eyes held no pity, only respect. I don't take handouts, she said, chin lifting. If I do this, it's mine, my rules, my fight. You back me, not own me. He nodded, handing her the key. Your terms. Always. She took it, the metal cool against her palm, and something shifted. Relief, hope, a spark she hadn't felt in years. Weeks later, the cafe took shape. Isabelle poured herself into it. Sanding tables, painting walls a soft blue, hanging a sign, Harper's Haven. Lily helped, her laughter filling the space as they strung lights above the counter. Greg hauled crates, his gruff voice offering tips on coffee blends. Nathaniel stopped by, sleeves rolled up, hammering shelves beside her. Looks good, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Feels like you. It's more, she replied, smiling. It's us. She'd set the rules. Paying customers up front, free meals out back for anyone hungry. No questions, no cost. A place where kindness wasn't a risk, but a promise. Opening day dawned crisp and bright. Isabelle stood behind the counter, apron tied tight as the door swung wide. Locals trickled in. Office workers, kids, a senator who'd heard the buzz. Ordering coffee and pastries, their chatter a warm hum. Out back, Greg led a line of familiar faces. Men and women she'd fed in alleys, now sitting at tables with dignity. Lily served plates, her grin wide, while Nathaniel lingered near the door, watching it all unfold. Midday, he pulled her aside, the cafe buzzing around them. "You did this," he said, voice low. "Not me, not Cross Enterprises. You. This is your win." She shook her head, eyes bright. "It's ours. I'd have drowned without you." She hugged him, quick and fierce, then stepped back, blushing. "Don't get used to that," he laughed, a rare sound. "Wouldn't dream of it." They turned to the room, Lily joking with a customer, Greg sipping coffee like a king, and Isabelle felt it. Home. Not just a place, but a life she'd built, piece by hard-won piece. That night, the cafe glowed under the stars, its back door open to the last stragglers. Isabelle sat with Lily and Greg, a plate of leftover scones between them. "We made it," she said, voice thick. "After everything, Mom, Dad, the restaurant, we're here." Lily squeezed her hand. "You're the best, Izzy." Greg nodded, gruff but soft. "Damn right." As they talked, Nathaniel's car idled across the street, his silhouette a quiet sentinel. He'd given her the key, but she'd opened the door. The threats were gone, the shadows lifted. Lancaster and Crane locked away, their schemes dust. Isabelle looked out, the city alive around her, and smiled. Kindness had come full circle.